And so the other key role that labels play beyond the money is artist development. And I think sometimes that's one of the roles that is overlooked. You tend to hear about labels when they've interfered with something and they've screwed it up, but actually much more often labels are helping artists turn what has potential into the finished product that you know they're capable of. And I suppose, how does that role work? And if you are now signing people a little bit further into their career, have they more got an idea of their sound when you start working with them than perhaps they did 10 years ago?
Well, as an example, I just signed somebody who's probably got next to no followers, like 1,000 views on his YouTube channel. He's called Matt Wills. He's a singer-songwriter, and I just went on instinct because after running I Love Live for so many years, I saw something in him that I saw early in Ed Sheeran, and I believed in his talent. So I decided I wanted to do the deal. I liked his early songs, and I thought we could find the sound. Everybody agreed, we did the deal. He then got 2 support slots with Halsey, a US artist who's doing well, and he did the O2 in Islington, and he did Coco. And off the back of those 2 shows, he got 2,000 fans. She was tweeting him, and everyone suddenly was a little bit more excited, like Jade isn't just on crack signing this guy, like he actually, maybe someone else likes him too, do you know what I mean? So with him, yes, there is artist development. My label have pretty much said to his management company, look, come back to us in 6 months when you've got a fan base and you've got at least sort of 200, 300 people coming to your shows. In the meantime, I will make a record with him, find his sound, and obviously we will help just manage all of the incoming interest. So whether it's doing stuff for YouTube or SBTV or whoever approaches us, we will just try and make it look as though he is still doing it on his own, because on some level he is, until we get it to a place where anybody cares. There's no point in us spending money because we will only mess it up.
Yeah, and there's no point rushing out a record that he's not ready to
No, exactly. So, and I think that's a very unusual thing to see happen now, that a major label would do a deal like that. I actually now look back and I'm not quite sure how I managed to get it through. It was just one of those things where like everyone's going, he's got no followers, Jade, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Shit. Don't worry though, because we'll get loads soon. Yeah.
So we'll regroup in a year's time.
Yeah. Well, they won't give me a year. They won't give me a year, that's for sure. But that's a really unusual case. Now they're more interested in stats. It's all about stats.
But I suppose for you as an A&R person, when you're looking for new talent, obviously yes, when bigger record companies in particular are making big cash investments, there'll always be somebody in the hierarchy who wants to reduce the risk, and that's where YouTube plays and social media stats come in. But I suppose, for you in your talent scouting role, actually ultimately is it gut instinct that there's something great here, and then you then have to then go and see if the stats are there to justify it?
Yeah, or convince the rest of the world that you're right. I mean, I'm old school. I just think the stats are cool and everything, and they're helpful, but when someone's got something, like, you have to also follow your instinct, because if you have that feeling, it's quite possible other people will too.
Yeah. So I suppose let's start off by asking the straightforward starting question, which is, well, what does the agent do?
So we kind of manage the live career of an artist. So we look after, we plan all the shows that they're supposed to do. We make sure that they're playing the right venues, that they're not kind of like, playing venues that are bigger than what they're worth, because we don't want them to play to no people. And then we sell them, we try and pitch them to festivals and get them, as high up on the bill or wherever it makes sense.
And Jade talked about how, what point do labels get involved, and that with a handful of exceptions, often these days you're looking for people to be a little bit further down the line. Having said that, one of the things the labels are looking at is what sort of audience are they playing to live. So at what point with new artists do agents normally get involved? Is it right at the start, or are you also looking for a bit of momentum to already be underway?
I think it depends. Like at CODA, we generally get on stuff super early. So we're just like, we look at all the blogs, we talk to all these guys, we just chat and kind of just see what people are checking out anywhere. I look at SoundCloud a lot myself, and then it's like gut instinct. Like if I think that something is good or it's something that I just like listening to, then I'm gonna want to work it. Like there's nothing that's really much deeper than that. The artist that she mentioned we worked together on, called Kali Uchis, like I've been working with her like from way before, and she didn't have that big of a following. It was more like she knew her identity, she knew what she wanted. Like she's like one of the smartest people that I can see, like as far as the branding side. And that was just my gut instinct to think that like something's gonna come out of it eventually.
I think sometimes when I meet artists who have just been taken on by an agency, and sometimes it's like, well, this is great, we'll never have to book our own gig again, we've now got an agent who's going to get us a gig a night. But actually often it isn't that immediately, suddenly you're going to get them 100 gigs. You still need the artist and management to be looking for the opportunities, and then you can come in and help and work out whether or not it's something worth doing. Yeah,
I mean, obviously we have different connections, and we have leverage that we can use through bigger artists and put a new artist on on a platform and stuff like that. But yeah, if you're a brand new artist, I mean, you still have to do things for yourself. Like that's the only way that anything happens, I think. I mean, in any career, it's just like you got to put yourself forward, for stuff. And then like any new artists that I have right now that are not ready to tour or do anything, what happens a lot is we're just putting them on small shows that nobody will realize that they're doing those shows, and they're not getting a lot of money, and they're just practicing being in front of people.
Now, when I talk to agents and managers, that's one of the things they say, increasing the issue when you're first starting out, is the risk of getting a huge amount of hype around a one-track artist when they're not actually really ready, and then everyone gets bored. when they come back a year later with the finished product, everyone sort of has a habit, I say everyone, journalists like myself, have a habit to write them off and say, well, that was. So almost initially it is, not going too big too soon. It's pacing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that goes into like branding and stuff too, because there's a lot of artists right now, especially right now, I think, that have big songs and you don't know what they look like. Like they're just like, there's a lot of like dance acts and stuff like that. You just have no idea what they look like because there's no branding behind it. There's no like, there's no thought behind it, or it's just happened too quick and they don't know how to handle it. So it's kind of like, it's the manager's job, the agent's job, everybody's job to kind of like, be able to kind of stretch out the career and kind of mold it into something,
We mentioned in someone asked a question. I mean, I am a great believer that at the start, gigging is a great way to A, hone your music, to work out what people like, and B, also to start building that initial fan base. Having said that, it can be challenging to get gigs, and often when you go to little venues, promoters are saying, well, how many Facebooks have you got? How many emails have you got? So when you're really just starting out, and you haven't got an agent, and realistically, you're not going to get an agent for a while. What opportunities are there? How can you find those opportunities?
Well, I mean, I think what he was saying made sense, like because like you do need a following, and it does. To me, online is like the most powerful thing ever right now. Like I'm obsessed with like YouTube and how that works, and SoundCloud is going to change all of that. But I mean, it just depends. I think like. At that stage, really what you want to do when you're doing a live show is practice. So that's to me, that's what's most important in terms of the live thing. I don't think you're going to get that many fans by just going out to random places, because a lot of the times people are just going to ignore you and they're just going to drink their drinks, and they're not really interested in seeing that person. So I think there has to be like some kind of following first, and then you can kind of do it. But you should still be out there because you're meeting people. You're connecting with people, and then you're just practicing. That's super important.
And you mentioned one of the roles the agent wants to run forward is sort of advising on what gigs are worth doing, what clubs are worth playing, what festivals, and what aren't. Yeah. And what sort of criteria are you basing on? I mean, is it how much they're going to get paid, or is it who's in the room, or what? As to what gigs to do? Yeah.
I mean, it totally depends on the artist. But like I said, like new artists like Callie that we work on again. She did a couple shows in London, and they were, on purpose, small shows, because we wanted to sell out the show. You want to keep the story going, get people talking about it. It's not, and that's that example. But I think it depends, really. It's case by case, to be honest with you.
Going to come to Kate next. So I said the manager was the most important person.
No, I was a little bit nervous when you said that.
Bit bigging you up.
It's definitely not. There's definitely a collaborative effort.
It is.
And if the artist isn't prepared to get off their ass and work.
Oh yeah, I didn't mean they were more important than the artist. Yeah, I should clarify that. The artist is the most important person. I'm taking that as read. Then after the artist, the manager. So I mean, I sort of say, well, the manager's everything, and to some extent that's true. But when it says, what day-to-day work are you doing with the artists that you've got on your roster?
Well, yeah, you're definitely right. I've worked with artists at various levels of their career. Personally, I find the most exciting bit is at the beginning, because you really are just you've got your fingers in all the pies and you learn so much. So my day-to-day changes depending on the artist, but it's never the same. And if you do want to go into management, your days are in someone else's hands. You're always on call. It's very emotionally driven as well, certainly is with my artists. It's a strange thing, the music business. Music is so emotional and business is so cold, so when you put the two together it's sometimes confusing, especially as you just saw all of that stuff is going on every single day, and for the artist sometimes you're just like, I just want to make music. So for the manager it's, you know, the job to hopefully make that a little bit easier. So it's my day-to-day is different, but my overall goal is to be the voice of the artist, so that I can help them make better decisions, or the decisions that they want to make, and reach their goal, and hopefully make it a little easier, take all of that off their shoulders so they can just create. But having said that, I really don't like the idea of the artist being lazy and not knowing any of that, because then you're in a really vulnerable position. So if you get to a point where you have a manager, that's great, but don't forget all of that other stuff that is going on, and they will make you a much better artist.
There's very much part, all of these things are partnerships, but I think the manager-artist relationship in particular, it is very much a business partnership, and the artist is the front man or woman, the creator, the writer, the performer, but they are also a partner in the business, and they don't need to be the nitty-gritty of PRS membership and things like that, but they need to have an understanding of what's going on.
Absolutely. I mean, if you've got, and especially today, there's so much. I mean, especially if you're starting out, you know, it really is a team effort, you know. If you don't understand how to manipulate your social media and things like that, then, you know, I can't do that for you. That's you. That's Etta Bond is also my sister. I really admire her because she is so good on her social media. She's just like relentless. I mean, I can't do it. I mean, if I just manage to tweet a day, I'm like, yes, did it, I hashtagged. But she's just like living her life on there, and the amount of fans that she gets from that is really, really incredible. But you know, she does a lot of the work herself in that respect. So, yeah.
And I suppose I talked about how, you know, the record and publishing industry is over here, the live industry is over here. I mean, obviously there is some collaboration. We've had that already, because we've heard that Mike and Jade have collaborated. They've been working on the same artist and they work together. But the manager is the one person who has to have an understanding. You are doing the record and the publishing bit, but you're also in the live business and you're also in the fan bit. So do you feel that you're the one person in the equation who does understand everything that's going on and how things are changing across the board?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, at the beginning, you really understand it. You try and do everything on your own. But as the artist gets bigger, you rely more and more on everybody who's on the panel. And then what Jade was saying about, you know, having your record label working with you, you really do want to have like a team behind you that fully believe in you. Like they're championing you the whole way. That's how it works. Yeah.
In theory, by the plan that I outlined before, I said the manager should be on board first. Are they always on board first, or sometimes is there already an agent or a label or somebody else involved?
I don't think so. I think it really depends on the artist. I was actually speaking to someone today, a guy who's just starting out. I think he's a really, really great performer in particular, and he's got a gig coming up, and I was like, why don't you just reach out to a few agents, see if you can get a few agents down there. He's really good, particularly live. So when I saw him, I thought that might be a good way to create a bit of a buzz around you. You know, if you've got some agents on board, then the agent can get you more gigs, and they can start getting some managers down and things like that. There's various different ways of going around it. So for him, in this case, I felt like him doing more shows and perhaps getting an agent on board first might be better, but it really varies.
One thing I always think is interesting, I mean, a lot of managers are totally independent, or they're part of an independent management company, but then there are companies like yours which ultimately sits under Psycho, that sits under Sony, Universal have a management division, Live Nation have a massive management division. But even though you're managed by somebody who's sitting has a sister label or sister publisher or whatever, it doesn't mean that you're buying into the entire company, does it? As a manager, you have to have the power to do the deal that is right, and that might mean signing them to your sister label, but it might mean working somewhere else.
Yes. Well, Oddchild is a management company, and then there is a side to it that has a label. I guess what's confusing is that Oddchild managed Labyrinth, but Labyrinth is signed to Psycho, so they're two very separate things. So I don't work for Psycho, so we are an independent management company. Oh, sorry, I forgot your question. What was the question?
But the point is, even if you sign to a management company that either has a label, a lot of management companies now have a label as part of the business, or they're part of a bigger company like Live Nation. But having said that, that doesn't mean you automatically have to work with all the other units in the business.
No, absolutely not. It's all artist dependent. I look after a band called the Hicks that are like London Grammar meets Massive Attack. I don't think necessarily they would be a good option for, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot now in case they want to sign them, but I don't think they'd necessarily be a good option for Psycho, let's say. I'd rather that they went with someone like Excel or someone a bit like that.
Yeah, so your job is to find the right label, which may or may not be.
Exactly.
Let's come to Phil next, and I mean, there's lots of things we could talk about with Disrupt in the wider sense, but I'm particularly interested in what the work you did with Get. And in some ways, you did some of the stuff I've talked about today, but then actually you ignored quite a lot of it. And you found a different way of doing it. So perhaps just talk us through how that relationship came about, and then how you structured the business that you have with him.
Look, he had a great product and he had a fan base already, and he just didn't understand the marketing part. So we looked at him and went, you've got an audience, we can see from Grime Daily people engage with all of your content, we just need a better way of putting out. And he had label offers from people, but they weren't very good, and they were talking to him in a language that he didn't really get. So we just took his vision and we went, cool, let's roll with it. So we basically operated as a marketing company for him, but we signed the rights in a deal which basically incorporated him and us in one company, which is a different way of doing it, but I think it worked as a partnership, and we all felt like we had a shared vision to go together on.
Quite a few artists, I mean, there is a traditional way of doing business. There are template contracts you can download off the internet. There's the management contract, the actually a lot of agents don't have contracts, it's all done on the knot. And there's a template label contract, but having said that, because the industry is in a state of flux, there's lots of different ways of doing things, particularly when you've got the online fan base. And actually, it's surprising, you might think, oh, that major label would never consider doing something out with a normal deal, but actually most people are willing to experiment.
Yeah, I think you have to be. I think all of us are sitting here trying to figure out what's happened to the music industry, and we're all trying to think, what is the next model? You know, technology has completely changed everything, and you know, the traditional models don't always work, and sometimes they do really well, but ultimately the labels aren't developing artists so much at grassroots level. So artists have to develop themselves and figure out a better and easier route to market. And luckily, technology has solved that for them, because they can go straight to their fans and you can sell directly. So we sold on iTunes and Spotify, but we also did a lot of direct-to-fan stuff on a shop and with bundle deals, which worked. And we tried different ways, but ultimately we went anywhere that people would connect with the music, which is a lot of places.
And I think, you know, people in the music industry talk a lot about analytics and social analytics, Google analytics, and email analytics, and all of that. Yeah. But I mean, and I think a lot of people, they look at a lot of pie charts and stats and don't necessarily know what they're looking for. But I think initially, actually, the thing you're looking for is what is turning our fans on, and how will they spend money.
Yeah, ultimately, we're very lucky that we can now look at Twitter, your dashboard, your Facebook analytics. Okay, ultimately Facebook stuff you a little bit because you can't get to all your fans, but you can learn from it. And I think we spent probably about 6 months, similar to what we spend on a brand client, just trying to figure out what did his audience want, what was the overall strategy when we came up with it. It wasn't just about music. Like, we took the music and we knew there was a rebellious theme to about it, but the whole music had a continuity, which was like, we built this journey which was about being a rebel, and people got involved because they felt like it was anti-establishment. It was, you know, it was different. And I think that's what you got to try and find out. What are your fans into? And that, and not just mean the type of music. It might be what is their attitude like? What do they care about? So that's kind of what we looked at, and you can get a lot of it from analytics. There's things like Social Bro that really read the sentiment of your audience and what they're talking about, the brands they might be into, and it's something that we really wanted to position him as away from. We put him with a live band. It was completely different. It's one of the things we wanted to try.
Now you mentioned that your company also works with brands, and with Get you work with brands. And I mentioned brand partnerships as being an increasingly important part of it. And actually, it's the one bit that does sort of unite everybody, and that labels are getting into the brands business. Live has actually been in the brands business longer than the rest of us, but also artists are now doing direct deals with brands. And just tell us a bit about how that works. And people, the minute they think of brands, they think of the $1 million check. And there are some $1 million checks, but often there's other things that you're doing.
I think we're in a really lucky time, in a time that everyone can take advantage of. You have brands that don't traditionally make content. I know we're sat in Red Bull, so I feel silly saying that, but traditionally don't make content. They love music. Every brand now has to be an entertainment brand, because on social media they're up against so much noise that only way they can compete is really creating content. So what we did with, we had a background in working with brands through Grime Daily, and it was, we said to them, if you want to get involved in music, how about you work with an artist? But instead of just placing some trainers in music videos, and don't get me wrong, I do that and it's cool, but why don't you help him with a tour bus, because he can't afford a tour bus? Why don't you put a studio in a room so they have studio times? And I think ultimately brands are going to be more and more willing to be involved in artist journeys, but not the traditional way record companies are for their rights, maybe just because they want to seem cool. And ultimately brands being cool through music has been happening for years, but we know it's going to happen even more. So that's kind of where I come from.
How do you discover new talent? So let's talk comments.
A lot of it is just online stuff, I guess, just YouTube, SoundCloud, blogs. I mean, it's all, I feel like I'm just saying obvious stuff, but it's just like, it's all just online stuff where I discover it mostly, but obviously we're having, like I'm asking Jade what she's checking out, what I'm checking, we all speak and discuss. I'm trying to think of something better to say though. Something like more like, that you can go like, oh shit.
But the crucial point therefore is that if you are an artist and you have some music, it needs to be on YouTube and it needs to be on SoundCloud, even if ultimately the game is to work with you guys, not DIY it. But in order to get onto your guys' radar, you need to have your content out there and be starting to get a little bit of traction around it.
Well, if it's not out, then nobody's going to see it. So it needs to be everywhere, pretty much. So
I think it's criminal how, I think there's so many people who don't put their music out. I can't bear to think all the music that's like under people's beds or something that none of us have heard that could have changed the world. Like, just be prolific, put your music out.
I mean, sometimes I think there are probably some perfectionists in the room who that song they've been working on for 2 years isn't quite ready, and it's only they could get a day in the studio with that produced. But I mean, should you be thinking about that, or is it just get out?
There's a very fine line, and I guess you've got to call it. Like, yes, I mean, some of the artists that I've worked with are relentless when it comes to the tiniest sound. Like they are, they embody the word, perfectionist. But,
I've got a different view, kind of. I think you will have artists that will always be perfection about music, but I think we're in a world now where there's so much content that we can put stuff out. Like, just not every artist can do it, but you can test it. Your fans can give you, you can put a demo out, you can put an acoustic version, get some feedback. I think one of the biggest problems is because a lot of artists see like the record label finish, the beautiful video shot in Ibiza with a girl on the beach, and they think that's what I've got to do. But you know what? Ultimately, spend £100, put a song out, put a little bit of campaign behind it, and see if it works. If it starts to build traction,
I totally
put
agree.
more money out.
I totally agree. And because you can always go back and revisit it, you can always, re-release something. There's no rules. But
and also, how many times, I don't know, have we been aware of situations where someone has an amazing demo and they've had something up online, and then they get a deal or a manager, and then they reproduce it and they get it mixed and it doesn't sound as good, and you go back to the original one because it just had that thing, you know what I mean? So I'm really pro that. Like, I'm constantly now just saying to acts, just like, you just finish it, like, we're not going in with anyone else, let's just put it up. Because I agree, I just think you can always revisit something. If you get a great response but there's a bit of criticism about a mix, like, you can just get a new mix.
Look, in technology, there's this whole thing called the feedback loop, which is build, learn, feedback. And I think, in music we spent so long, fighting over keeping things perfect, that actually if we just adopted a tech model where we just built stuff, got some feedback, learned from it, made it better, and kept on going, the artist gets better, the music gets better, and we can move quicker. And I think that's what technology is enabled to do. But a lot of creatives maybe maybe take that 6 months to do one loop, which is...
Oh my god, one of my artists has spent 2 years finishing an album, like literally, like my work just laugh at me now when I mention his name. But, you know, again, you know, I was an artist once. You have to appreciate that process. Like, I'm not going to be that person that forces someone to do anything that they don't feel they can back 100%, because in the end it's them that's going to have to live with it for the rest of their life and put their name attached to it. So it just depends on the human being you're working with, and sometimes it's those small things towards someone's attitude that is what makes them successful and leaves the other person sitting there that you've never heard of, because they're able to just let go and trust that it will be okay and kind of roll with it and not overthink it.
I mean, and some of it can be positioning. If you're putting stuff up that's sort of a demo or an off-cut, or say that, and then when you come out 6 months later with the finished version, it's not like, oh well, that was a failure, they had to redo it. It's like, look, you're being very honest with your fans. Been in the studio today. Here's what I did. What do you think? And actually, that then creates a conversation that you can engage with fans.
The thing is, we've got to this, we're in this world, where if you don't get enough likes or enough plays, you see it as failure. And you can't see it as failure, you just got to think, I'm going to learn from it. And like, that's the problem with social currency now, with views and likes, everyone's judged by it. And I think it's actually stopping a lot of the creativity, and stopping people just putting things out for the pure love of it. And like, you know, maybe that's just me, but maybe that's just, I just think about that and think, if you're not scared about putting things out, just learn from it, look at the comments, ask people their opinions, and then try and make a better record off the back of it or change it.
I think also, like, going on from what you're saying, you've got to, like, if you really believe in yourself as an artist, surely you want to be here for longer than a year, right? So let's take Prince for example. His career has been so long, and I'm sure along the way he has put out bits of music that, you know, he's been like,
Yeah.
But you know what, we don't remember because there's so much of it, and he's going to be around forever. And I think that's kind of the mentality that, okay, I might have slipped up there, but I've got so much more to give that's going to fail into insignificance.
In Prince's case, he's probably had it all taken down, but most other artists,